I think one of the things we have seen a lot, just wanted to share in the school system, a lot of potential or future hackers are part of our ecosystem. So starting with grade 8s and 9s, that's when they start to master their skills in our sandboxes. So our threat is dual, internal and external when we're dealing with. So and there's a thin line where we need to manage in our space around where the learning stops, and we actually put hard controls in place. From the outside world, when I look at on daily side of things, we literally target globally in a way because Toronto district, and we see a lot of threat actors actually getting ready, prep to attack. And as you see, the keychain part of the ransomware itself too is first things first, register a goddamn domain that looks like TDSB. So we see on daily basis 2 to 3 come up every day. And our goal is to catch them within 24 hours and make sure we just put them in a dark space overnight. So those things never happen. But that's on daily basis. And we also see a lot of compromised credentials as part of it. And there's been continuous targets around ransomware in our shop itself too. So a lot of checks and balances. We've been working hard to balance it out. And in last 12 months, we do also some work with entities like CSIS, our CMP, and OPP and TPS also. So there's a direct line from me and my office to them also. So when our name pops up in dark rooms, we do get alert. And then that happens regularly, and they do give us heads up saying this and this group is actually prepping to attack you, and this could be the vector. So we always go to, I guess, work overnight and working with partners and Deloitte's, Palo Alto's, and others in the market over the years have helped us to harden our environment. But we see attack potential every single day. Around 3 to 4 targeted us just at TDSB alone in Toronto.
I think for me, there's 1 or 2 things that I'd probably call out. Number 1, I think for us still the biggest threat is people. When I think about 125 different portfolio companies globally, if you think about the number of people that work in those and the threat landscape and the vectors that you have, the number of people that I'm still worried about clicking on that link is probably still the biggest threat for me. So consequently, we spend a lot of time on security awareness and just teaching people about what good looks like, how to recognize these things. I know, James, you're here as well from CPP. So again, you can testify to this, the number of like phishing simulations we do even internally, but we try and mirror that as well with a lot of our portfolio companies to look at that. For me, the second thing is largely around supply chain risk. So that's the other thing that we see. I think for a lot of you that have recently probably seen the news in the last few weeks, we had this incident around Salesforce and SalesLoft drift. For some of the folks that may not be familiar with this, think about when you go on a website, you have that little chatbot that pops up at the bottom. Well, if you have a chatbot that communicates with Salesforce, that's the thing that was compromised. So there was a whole slew of vendors, publicly available vendors that were actually compromised as part of that and in terms of data. So I think from a supply chain perspective, what you need to look at with each of the different companies is kind of how you're looking and managing all of the different agreements and your critical vendors and how you're dealing with those. But we see that as a consistent threat because it's not something which you have control over as an organization. It's something which is a third-party risk that you have.
I have actually a long career on incident response as well. A few of you actually had been my client in the past. And what is interesting is we are talking about AI and how the attacks are getting sophisticated, but most part of the root cause are still on those topics. It's a phishing, it comes from a vulnerability that was not patched, and etc. We do have very sophisticated attacks though. Like I've seen an attack where the threat actors were able to impersonate a CIO on a company and do a big financial fraud. They actually created a domain very similar to the organization, and they waited on that domain for a whole year. and a year after they start taking money out of the account because they were able to change bank accounts using the email. So there was some procedures that the bank should have followed and didn't. But yeah, and I'm talking about over a year ago. Threat actors that actually, through a phishing exercise, were able to get a CIO credential, stay there for a whole year before actually throwing the attack in. But the level of sophistication was so high that even the police, the agencies, everybody involved was like, there was no way we would catch this. This was unseen. And it's getting better. They're getting better. It's getting harder for us to identify phishing. If it's getting harder for me that have been working on cyber for over 15 years, I can't imagine for the people that get caught. So I think that's this like, but my response is, don't think about the sophisticated attacks. Go to the basics, basically.
Maybe actually one thing to add here, and I'll give you another example of an interesting attack that we saw. So obviously many of you guys have moved your IT infrastructure footprint over to the cloud. So one of the interesting things we saw was insider risk, and where someone from internally within the company gave access to someone, a third party. That third party, similar to what you were saying, stayed in the environment for well over a year. They actually spun up some cloud instances and were running Bitcoin miners on the cloud instances. Now, the question is, how do you detect these? Well, no one would have detected them because they just showed up in your cloud costs, and it was bundled up into a whole series of cloud costs. And it's not until you actually dive deeper into some of these things than you actually see. So yeah, to your point, they're getting very, very sophisticated.